And I'm always contemplating going to the next level. And on some level, I felt a little bit stuck for a while. So it's interesting Victor shows up tonight because, no, seriously, because, I'm not picking on Victor. But when you're in a different consciousness, different things get drawn into your reality, okay? Different people come into them at certain times, and these things happen, right? Yeah. Well, when Victor was here, we were all like, we played a little bit. I mean, we didn't really play hard, but we played like with the whole bending spoon and shit and stuff like that, right? So, that was a lot of time. Yeah, that was. But the thing about Victor to me is Victor's like trying to go to the next level too. Is like pushing the trying to push that envelope of what we can do. And it's exactly where I'm at right now. That recently kind of shifted back for me. But I need to backtrack a little bit because I wound up backtracking this past week because I was like, okay, I feel like I'm missing something as far as being able to like really see what I hear and I mentally know, but I don't fully embody yet. Like things like reality can be shifted and changed, and we can have all these things happen so instantaneously, and we have all this power. Where the hell is all that? so I went back and did some more studying on. Yeah, went back in future and basically went back to this like psychology in general, and the consciousness, subconsciousness we've been talking about for some time. But I'm going to add a little extra effect in here. And our consciousness, as we grew up, the main time period for a lot of our filters happens between 0 and 6 years old. We've already talked about that before. That's just basic psychology. From birth to 6 years old, you're absorbing everything. You're an open sponge. You can't consciously go, that's stupid. You just take everything in. Whether somebody says you're stupid, you're an idiot, you'll never amount to anything, you take those things in as truth. And that's what these pieces of the puzzle here represent. Our beliefs basically, beliefs that we've taken in, because our beliefs actually create perceptions of reality. So we have these pieces in our puzzle. And what we're trying to do, our mental aspect, what it's trying to do is make sense of the world we're in and how we fit into it. That's the job of the mind, is make sense of the world we're in and how do we fit into it, how can we work within it. Well, the negative thing is that we get a lot of these negative programs like you're stupid, you'll never amount to anything, and we basically wind up filtering what we believe we're worth and our abilities. So there's like two belief system aspects. It's what you believe about yourself and what you believe about your abilities. And number one out of all that is what you believe about yourself. And here's the crazy thing I want to throw in here. Is let's say, because they say the most part we're 10%, use 10% of our brains. I think the group here we use more of that. But they say average, we use 10% of our brains. So the consciousness, there's a short or a small amount of it that's conscious, and most of it is unconscious. It's below this line here, sub being below the water, okay, like an iceberg is the analogy, mostly used. So the conscious mind has thoughts, ideas, and goals, and the subconscious is all about feelings and images. I just want to go over first, before I go any further, how we were programmed. And we were not so programmed with words as much with our feelings. I'll give you an example. Let's say that, just imagine that you're a little child, right? And let's say, whether you had a mother or father, pick whichever one, it doesn't matter. Let's say you took all this time drawing this pretty little picture, you put all this effort into it, colored it, made it really pretty, and you took it to one of your parents. Okay, the parents in the kitchen, they're busy with something like the bills or reading the paper. And basically you take this prize that you made, you want to show them, and they kind of peer around their work. They stop for a second and go, oh, that was great, that looks really beautiful, great job. Okay, those are all the positive words. Okay, but what if the interaction is something like this? The child comes in, the parent puts down everything, hugs the child, looks at the picture with a little more intent, and doesn't say anything, but that interaction is going to have more of a positive impact rather than a negative one. So what I'm trying to say here is we didn't get so much programmed with the words, but the emotional feeling behind them. Because the emotional feeling behind the first one is, even though the right words were said, the emotional feeling is, whatever you're doing matters more than me. Okay? And we build up a lot of these, hundreds, if not thousands of these little programs and experiences that we start filtering reality through. Now, that's not too bad when you're young, because the mind's job is to find out where you fit into reality and find out what reality is about and how you can fit into it. That's okay when you're a child, and those programs fit. They help you survive in certain circumstances. And we've talked about this before, but a lot of people in the room that are empathic, which everybody here is empathic, usually this group is more so. Usually we had a negative environment that pushed us to develop the empathic ability. We weren't necessarily born with it. You had a negative environment, whether it was abusive or negative, and you learn to sense the situation before something bad happened. So that was one of the ways that our minds pushes us to develop something. But here's the downside when we start to, hey Donna, here's the downside. You can sit here, Donna, or up here, either way.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and close that if you want to there. Thank you. Get my distraction out of the way. Okay, so that's all fine and good at one particular stage of your life. But once you get older, here's the kicker about the subconscious, or in this underconscious aspect, is it has a picture of the world and it wants to keep it. Even if that picture is horribly negative, it wants to keep that picture. This is why when you talk to somebody that is quote-unquote religious that's different than you, that they'll go into a fighting match to defend their picture of reality. Because if you take one of these basic pieces out, what happens is you've shaken what they know about reality, which shakes where they fit into it. Does that make sense? That's why people...
The ego's attached to that reality.
Yeah, ego's a pretty good word for that. But if you challenge that belief system, you're basically challenging their world and the foundation of that. I went through a strong experience, and Deborah said she'd gone through it too. Maybe some of y'all have too. But I had a strong experience years ago where I lost my Jesus, because I was raised Baptist. I lost my belief system in Jesus and my, at the time, current belief system about what God was. And there was a depression attached to that loss of the belief system, because it was like a part, I mean, it's hard to describe unless you go through something like that, but it's like I lost my touch with reality. It's like, whoa, it's like I didn't have, where I used to put like foundation into, I didn't anymore. Even once I started to question that whole thing about religion, once I lost it, it was a lot different than questioning. Once you lose it completely, there's a little bit of a grief. And Deborah said, was it 2 years ago, when you were visiting your family, and everybody was around Christmas time, they had a different, or you had a weird, could you just go over that real quick?
It was like I couldn't celebrate with them like they were celebrating. And used to, I was in touch with them, I was in tune with them, and I wasn't at the time. It was almost like I wasn't even a part of that anymore. And it's like I've lost my in touch with them. And now I've decided a different way to do that and to be a part, which is to see it differently. And that's helping me. But it's, at the time, it was like, my goodness, you don't even believe what they believe in.
Yeah.
And losing that was like you said, it was a foundation for me. It was a foundation of what I believed in, what I thought God was about to do.
Which why you're here, what you're doing here, all that gets shaken.
Because I know I went through a period where, I mean, I was married to a minister, you know, and so I had to get out of that. You know, I had to get out of that. And leaving the glass house was one of the best things I ever did, you know. But I went through this period where when I gave up my Jesus, but it was kind of like something would happen. It was like, it's because you're not believing in Jesus anymore.
No, like in your own life. Yeah.
I would get that little, you know,
but that's what
you're not giving to the church. That's why you don't have any more money in the bank. You know, and so I went through about 2 or 3 months of this almost self-doubt.
Yeah.
You know, and it was kind of like, I'm okay with this. And now I'm at a point where when someone gets all, you know, holier than thou Christian on me, it's kind of like I'm almost offended now when they get in my face about it. And it's like,
because they're defending their beliefs now.
You know, and
it's like a rod you're hanging on to. You hang on to it. Pretty soon your hands start to slip, and you're like, I don't feel secure.
Yeah.
And we all hate that insecurity. That's why we
like
created
the trapeze, one trapeze to the other. That in between can be
Yeah, and it's like frozen time. But that's what we're holding on to. So what I'm getting at here is, or what I'm trying to explain, is some of the changes and things that we're wanting to happen are not happening fast because of the unconscious holding on and not letting the shift happen quickly. So we're going to try to bring in some things to help that along the way. Because literally, the subconscious, even if it's a negative picture, it holds on to it. It'll fight for it. It's first, when it's challenged, its first instinct is to fight you. That's when you know you're hitting somebody's belief system, is all of a sudden they start getting negative and you start fighting, but you know you're not going to get anywhere. The thing is that we do that with ourselves, though. We're inside our heads trying to say these things, and I've been talking to a couple of people recently. Here you are affirming something positive. How many times do you catch yourself inside your head saying the opposite? That's the shit you got to fight and get out of your system, because that's preventing you from making the leap, because you're doing that fighting within yourself. So the number one focus of the subconscious is it's desperately trying to make sense of the external world and your place in it. So if it's at all disturbed, then what happens is you don't have a safe place to stand. Even if that safe place was, I'm scared of reality, I'm going to be attacked at any moment, at least you knew, you know what I mean? And and that's taken away, that becomes an issue.
Even if it's a fear-based place.
Yeah.
But that's what, like you said, that's
And those are
what
the
you're-
easiest
So
ones
what
to
you
get
know.
stuck in, too.
The devil that you
Oh,
know is
yeah.
better than the
Because
devil
if
that
you know to
don't
expect
know.
fear,
Yes.
then you're just there all the time. You expect danger, expect it.
So these belief systems are literally the filters that we are, one, putting energy out through and then receiving things back in. So whenever you have a deep, strong shift, your reality around you will shift. And I'll go over this in a second, but I was doing a session on somebody and they made a joke about the word synchronicity. I was like, that's interesting. You know how I'm about words. I'm always screwing with words because my brain is screwed up in a particular way. But now getting back to the subconscious. Okay, we have the conscious mind that we're aware of it. So if you're doing like an affirmation, it's coming from here, okay? You're not doing that in your unconscious. You have like an affirmation, I'm wealthy and wise, I'm strong, I'm powerful. That's here. So you may be putting that out with your conscious mind, but here's the trick about reality. Your reality is the totality of the unconscious, what you're putting out, and the consciousness, what you're putting out. That's what makes your actions happen. So actions, you break that word down, it's act on. You act on your belief systems, those create your actions, and in quantum physics language, that's what collapses the waveform. That's what makes your reality. And literally, your internal creates, through the actions and the belief systems, your external. So we can't blame the external. It's the internal that's created that, whether it's on an individual basis or a collective basis. But the strong thing that I want you to get is why here's an example of the subconscious preventing you from doing something. Let's say we do a tapping here, and it's like the best thing for you to keep this moving is you tap on it daily, okay? The subconscious, the biggest thing to get over the subconscious is it's inertia. It's like it doesn't want to move. It's very hard to budge. So if you start tapping on something, and you may do it 1 day, 2 days, and then you'll like skip a day, and then it gets further and further apart. It's like you got to have enough willpower to bypass inertia to start the change happening. So whenever we're doing a tapping session up there, we're skipping around some things so we can jump start the inertia and get it really spinning, but you've got to keep moving on it yourself, because it is about self-mastery. You've got to master your own energy, and no matter who do you go to or what you go to or what you read or what you experience, it may give you the energy to bypass inertia, but you've got to keep that spinning. It's like a bike wheel. You got to keep that spinning so you keep moving forward. So the subconscious is what's tripping us up. So we're peering down in here when we're tapping and tapping into what's there, but the whole idea is you got to keep moving.
That's interesting because Tony Robbins was on Dr. Oz. I happened to catch it. And that's exactly what he was saying. That emotion and motion are very intertwined, and if you can focus on emotion and combine it with your emotion, that you can keep the positive movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you see, to me, the emotion is also what stops you too. Fear is an emotion that stops.
That's what he was saying. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just the emotion that moves you. It's got to be something stronger, like will. And I'm always looking at the bigger picture. And if you look at our solar system, our sun is yellow, right? Solar plexus being on the chakra system, it's like What if this reality, there's lots of different realities and we're learning different things. What if this one is about learning to develop our will? So here we are born into a reality where everybody's trying to take your will away. It's even in religion. You know, there's a God out there, you give your will away. What if you're supposed to be not giving your will away, but you're in a reality that's trying to take it to make you say, fuck no, I'm going to have my will, I'm going to do what I want to do. Just like that movie I love, Adjustment Bureau. That's the last 15 minutes of that is saying exactly that, right? So, and movies always speak to me. So when we have peripheral belief systems, like small little ones, we're okay with those changing. But once you start getting these core ones, that's when the body reacts and starts tightening up and resisting. So we're going to try to pull this into sessions in a new way and just kind of play with that whole aspect. But the thing to go away with is whenever we start this spinning for you, this forward movement, once we ID what this core issue is down here and we loosen it, it's up to you to completely rid it out of your system and do different actions and thought processes that do counter to that. You've got to overcome that. That's the self-mastery part. And that's a part that haven't necessarily been missing, but needed a little more definition for me. So these peripheral belief systems aren't that bad, okay? But what's inside the subconscious core, that's some hard stuff to crack. And you've got to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. That's like to me, like the spiritual warrior is working on themselves. Not the external, but the self. Why is this here? What's going on? And digging in there and trying to clear it. And now, next I'm going to just give you some quick examples. This is on the board behind Victor, but I've got it pictured here as best I can. I can't blow it up any bigger. We're going to pull this in because as we're tapping, I'm going to have Deborah. I'm going to have Deborah tap out some things. So these are actually real sessions I did. So this person had anxiety and tension in the back, and then as I worked on her, it came out intestines, diaphragm, and heart. Anxiety and tension are governed by spleen and stomach, and those lead to digestive issues. So anxiety always hits the digestive system. In the back, the muscle that was in the back was the spleen muscle, and the concept was carrying too much. The intestines, the large intestine specifically, you think about the colon being able to let things go. This person was not able to let go. The lungs were not letting things in because she had allergies also. And then she had some depression. Can you see how that whole makes a story? So the story is that anxiety and tension is holding her so tight that she's carrying too much based on not being able to say no and things like that, not being able to let go of her load, and not being able to take more in. And allergies is a way of allergies are a way of rejecting your environment. It's like too much, or you feel unsafe. There's lots of different levels there. So one of the affirmations I gave her was, I choose to relax, breathe easy and deep, and let my life flow. Now that affirmation alone can rewrite a bunch, but here's the thing. That's where the subconscious comes in. You'll start doing that, but once you stop doing that, you've stopped that forward movement. You've got to keep the forward movement going. And not just by the words, but with actions too. So if you're saying these words, then you have to start letting stuff go literally. You know, you catch yourself with certain thoughts. And I've been playing with this recently, and that's a piece of it I've been missing, is I'd have all this shift in my awareness, like, yeah, I get that, I get why that's there. But then, what the whole idea is for that, what was unconscious to be conscious, so you can see it and catch it when you do it. The self-mastery is, oh, I'm seeing what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make it different. Another example here, the guy that showed up with a tumor at the group in the right lung, and he gave us most of the story, but growth in tumors can tend to relate to liver gallbladder. It's about this, it's like anger if it's not moving, because anger is one of the biggest emotions of our movement. If it's not moving, it's almost like compression that makes a diamond in the right side or in the right lung, right being masculine, and lungs are about having trouble letting go of something. So what happened is he told the story that when he was younger, I think it was 18, he wanted to marry this girl and his father said no. So basically he didn't follow his heart, he did what his father wanted him to do, and this grief and anger over not following his own heart, not doing what he wanted to do, and this guy's in his mid-70s now, has finally, depending on how strong it is, manifested in a physical way. Because I totally believe that your body is the manifestation of your thoughts and emotions, period. That's all it is. Okay? And if you know, I'm trying to say like that's all it is, because we don't want to give it too much like solid. You can study the chakra system to where it becomes a problem dealing with chakras, because now they seem more solid than the physical matter. You know, it's all just energy. So we want to work in these words, and we're going to play at this tonight. Like, I choose to let go. That's the lung, okay, of my anger towards my father and grief over not following my own heart. I forgive my father. I forgive myself. There is forgiveness in my heart and lungs. Okay. I'm not going to go over this right now. I wrote this in with how the Chinese medicine works, but I don't want to take up too much time doing that. I do want to mention this whole thing about synchronicity, and you can call me crazy, but a lot of people do. But synchronicity. When I was talking about that word synchronicity, she made a joke and she says, "Is that about a different time and place?" And I go, she's right. Synchronicity. Sync is about frequency. The chrono is time, and city is like a place. So basically, it's about frequency, time, and place. So whenever we have a synchronistic event happen in our lives, what we're really experiencing is a frequency that we're holding is bringing that to us in a particular time and place. Does that make sense? But I'm going to take it a little bit further. You know, I've mentioned the whole thing about the Stargate, you know, that TV series. I think there's always messages, even in something you might call silly like a TV show, there's messages from the subconscious of the collective thrown into everything. You can pull out messages from every single thing. Every movie I go to, I'm always getting a message. It's amazing. Like when I was doing that whole thing on breaking out of our slavery, which is, this is just an extension of that, or a forward movement. I got that movie Django right at the right time. It made perfect sense to me. Even in the movie, they cut out the main character cuts it, or one of the main characters cuts that piece of the skull and shows about the divots, and so it related it back to the brain. I was like, freak. So it's cool. Anyway,
When I saw that.
Oh, you did. So in Stargate, there was like this time circle device where you could go between different planets in a huge star system. And these chevrons, what was interesting about the TV show is the original one had 7 chevrons, just like we have 7 chakras, okay? And if you aligned or tuned those different chakras into a specific station, it opened up and you went right to that station, okay? It was like instantaneously taken, even though if it was like, you know, light years away, right? So our little Stargate is a toroidal field. It's the energy around our system. It's the same energy that's around the black hole. It's our little star system. And those chevrons are our chakras. And the whole idea is to get those chakras aligned in the right way so that we can manifest something. So I'm starting to believe this. I think this, but belief is a little bit different. But I think this. I think we are constantly phasing in and out of multiple realities all the time. All the time, okay? But what happens is we're phasing in and out based on our consciousness. So we may phase forward, and we can also phase backward. You know, so it's like we're flipping in out of these realities. But it's not that big of a difference because we're not making huge changes in the underlying deep, deep consciousness, okay? So we still have a little bit of a framework of the picture because the subconscious, going back to the movie Inception, the subconscious is what's making up the reality, okay, the totality of that. So if you don't have a huge shift there, you're not going to have a huge shift out here, but you're going to have enough of one. So it's like you're tapping on being clear, and all of a sudden you go to work, and the total work environment's different. Well, what if what really happened is you actually phased into a different reality where that was the case? Okay, that may be a little far-fetched, but I think it's something along those lines.
Can I just take a second to explain?
Sure, of course.
Explain to Matt what tapping is. Basically, it's like acupuncture. You've heard that? Where they use what? No, acupuncture, where they put Chinese medicine.
Oh, the needles.
Pressure points.
Yeah, I've heard something like that.
Okay, well, that's what the tapping is based on.
And we're about to do it up here in the front. So think about, here's an issue, and this is on your sheet too. You can take this sheet if you want to, or you can write on it tonight. I'm going to add plenty of them if you want an extra one. But there at the bottom, when we're going to do the toroidal fielded, is you're going to hold a particular thought about your goal, the visual, the words, the desire, the intent, the feelings, and hold that energy in your body, okay? That's tuning in the 7 chakras, okay? And then you're going to send that out through the toroidal field, the energy, to send that wave out to come back. Okay, it's just an exercise to play with. Does that make sense? And we'll do that in this. Those who have come in here for a while, that will make sense. So I'm sorry if if you're a little lost, but hopefully by the time we end, you won't be completely lost. So Deborah, I am going to shut up here, and what you're